Hey YouTube, it's AWestRockMy1 again, and today we'll be working with a 26cc CS Homelite engine. And say you have a problem with fuel getting to the primer bubble, and you know it's not your fuel lines. Alright, I'm having this problem. Primer, no fuel, none. So what we're going to do is we're going to take apart the carburetor. I'm going to take it off and I'm going to show you your problem. And first, see, we have two screws right here and right here. What it is, it's hex. We're going to use a hex screw to pull it off. Going to take the two screws out and lay them out on a flat surface. And once you take those two screws out, you're going to have your filter come off. Alright? You just lay that out somewhere. There's no gasket for nothing. It's just the plastic. So, next, you want to disconnect your fuel lines, which are right here. Some are rotted on, some aren't. So, it might be difficult for you, it might not. Mine weren't that hard. And then once you pull it off, you're going to have a gasket, which should be on your carb. You can just pull that off and lay it out. Okay, so here's the carburetor. It's basic, simple. Your choke's still on there. Here are your two fuel lines, and just make sure you don't mix them up. Alright, now you're going to use, let's see, Phillips said there are two screws on the bubble. You can just pull them off with these. Lay them out. Okay, and then once you get that second screw off, you can lay that out next to the other. And what's going to happen is this pull cover right here is going to come off with the bubble, and then you're going to have this, which you can pull off with your hands. And then what you can do is you can just pull off the bubble, and if there's any fuel in it, make sure you don't pull it off like that. Just set it aside. And then you're going to have a first cover, which is right there. You can just easily pull that off the gasket. See, it's very thin, so it's delicate. And you have your gasket, light it up. Now, I've already fixed the problem, but if your primer isn't getting filled with fuel, and you know it's not your fuel lines, see, right around here, I had some residue covering up two entry and exit holes for the primer. So what you can do, what I did is I took a piece of small wire and I scraped it off and I put them through the two holes and made sure they were clear. I put them through both, and then also where your bubble was, there's going to be a little black gasket. You can just take like a small Phillips, about that big. You can just pull it off or pull it out with your hands, it doesn't matter. Just broke it. Well, anyways, it's going to pull out, and that's what's going to come out. What happens is fuel squeezes through there into the primer bubble. And then once you scrape all that excess off and you make sure the holes are clear, what you can do is just go ahead and start reassembling. So go ahead and put your bubble on there. Bubble on there, and then take that bubble cover and go ahead and stick it on there so the bubble stays on. Make sure you put it on right so your two screws go in correctly. And then you can flip it over, put your gasket right back on. Make sure you put it on the right side. And then you're going to take your delicate piece, which is very thin, so be careful with it. You're going to stick that on as well. And then what you can do is take your carburetor, stick it right back on there. And then take the two Phillips screws that you unscrewed from it and go ahead and insert them. And then use a Phillips, screw them back on. Make sure your gasket and delicate piece are staying on there once you reassemble, because they will fall off. Okay. Now, carburetor, stick it right back on there. Now, like I said, be careful when reassembling. Go ahead and put your screws back in. And then use that Phillips. Screw them back in. They're very easy to screw back in and insert and screw them out. No problem. It's not hard. Make sure you screw it in evenly so it doesn't mess up the gasket. Okay, then what you want to do is go ahead and take the other gasket you laid out and make sure you put it on the right side. There are two sides on the carburetor, and if you put the gasket on the wrong one, it's not going to run right. Just to let you know. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go ahead and take your two screws and take your air filter. Okay, take your two screws and go ahead and put them through. Okay, and then what you want to do now is go ahead and stick them through the carburetor. And then if your gasket falls off, you can just stick it right back on. Okay, now what you can do is you can go ahead and feed it through on the mount. Okay, now what you want to do now is take your hex, go ahead and insert it in the driver you're using, and screw in the two screws right here. Make sure you screw them in tight so there are no leaks, and the gasket stays on correctly. You don't want to over tighten now. Just make sure it's on tight. And if you have a screw that doesn't want to go in and it's harder to screw in, it's not a problem. There's no difference. It's just, you know, that's just the way the threads are on it. Okay. Alright, mine are in. And what you want to do now is you want to go ahead and take your fuel lines and insert them on the post on the carburetor. I call them posts. You can call them inserts or whatever. I mean, I don't care. But you just go ahead and take your fuel lines, pop them right on there. Okay. Alright, make sure you have fuel in your tank, because if you don't, you're gonna be retarded and you're gonna be doing nothing. Did all that work for nothing. Okay, so what you want to go ahead and do now is press your primer, see if there's fuel that comes in. Give me 1 second. And I have fuel coming into my primer. Okay? So what you can do is go ahead and take your cover and put it back on. It's not going to affect the starting of the engine. Okay? Alright. Here's your throttle cable. Now what you want to do is you want to go ahead and press the stop button a couple times. That resets the motor. Because sometimes if you don't, it'll be hard to start. Make sure it's primed. Make sure it's on full choke. Oh, give me 1 second. Make sure you don't forget to reconnect your gas cable or your throttle, because that might affect it. Cool. And then here's your screw, your idle screw. You turn it, make sure it's on right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it to the right so it's more lean, and it'll start quicker. Just a couple turns. Alright, that's half choke. Now we're going to go ahead and put it on full. That's it for today. Looks like you got it fixed. Got the fuel into the primer. And hope you guys enjoy. Comment, you know, just tell me what you think of the video, and subscribe, you know. Alright, I'm out.